surveyed in 12 countries, but we have results from 11 countries that I would like to walk you through. Because, and then I hope I go to the next one here, and you can also see it in my next slide. Over the last couple of months, we send out a survey as the SMARTA-NET project to the people living in the different lighthouse sites that are associated with our project, with the network. And in that survey, we asked for people's actual travel behavior and how it also changed over the last recent years. So we more deeply looked into mobility patterns of the individuals, and we also asked about their attitudes towards using alternatives, so more sustainable alternatives to using their own private car. And what you maybe will also see later more become clear in this webinar, the survey followed a couple of sections. First, we asked the personal characteristics, but second, we really went into more depth into the actual travel behavior of people, so their mobility behavior. After that, they were asked about the changes in their travel behavior, also because of the recent pandemic we have experienced, and also the inflation, which hit rural areas harder. And then certain attitudes were asked, so the people were asked what they would think of certain alternatives to their own private car and what is actually hindering from using them. And the last section was on tourism. So the relation between mobility and tourism was asked, and people were asked if tourism-specific mobility solutions could be an option in their area. And that survey was done in 12 countries. You can see a nice spread all over Europe from different parts indeed. So we were surveying people from Ireland to Greece, from Portugal to Latvia, and altogether about 3,000 people, like Brendan was saying, have been surveyed, which for us is a really nice result. I think it's something very unique as well. So we really have a very good coverage of Europe with a lot of responses. So with that, we really think we can go more into depth to see what exactly are the trends in rural mobility, and what are also possible solutions as well for the challenges that we have identified already previously. So yeah, that's something that I'm going to walk you through now rather quickly. We have taken results from different lighthouse sites to put them a bit into perspective with some general conclusions that we see overall from all the different lighthouse sites. So not as a surprise, but of course we can see clearly that the car is being most used mode of transport. It always is in every different lighthouse site. The car is always the most used option for what kind of purpose. So whether it's going to work, going to see your friends, or just going for a trip to the woods or something like that, it's always the car that's taken most often. But we do see clear regional differences throughout Europe in an okay, but how about the other modes? And also the level of car use, of course, also differs over the different countries that we have surveyed. So for example, if I look correctly, I mean, we see some in Slovenia, quite a large share of car, for example, while in Romania, for example, walking is more popular compared to the other lighthouse sites. Well, for example, in Czechia, we see that the bike is also much more popular. And for example, especially for leisure trips, you can see a lot of people biking actually to go on a trip to somewhere to spend their free time. So that's also very interesting to see when we compare the different countries with each other. And what's also very clearly seen is, even though we only surveyed in rural areas, even within rural areas, you have more urbanized and more densely populated areas than others. And then you clearly, not as a surprise, can see that people are more satisfied with public transport when they live in a more dense area compared when they're living in a sparsely dense area. And also very clearly throughout all the lighthouse sites is that when people live in a more rural area, they also are finding it more difficult to use alternatives than their cars. So they actually experience also more car dependency. For example, you can see that also on the right chart in Slezska Valley, that you can clearly see a trend line going towards more and more car dependency as the area becomes more and more rural. So that was also another interesting insight that we had. Then we also asked about the impact of COVID and also the long lasting of that. And it's really the impact of the pandemic on the travel behavior. So not on the general well-being itself, but more really on, okay, did you change because the way you were going to work or to other places really change because of COVID? Actually, we see this effect as rather limited. I mean, it's significant, varying between 8 and 16%. So that's kind of the rate in where people really so this is kind of an event that really changed the way they're traveling. But most of the people kind of throughout all the lighthouse sites kind of remained their mobility pattern as it was before 2020. So that being a bit in short, the general conclusions of the survey. There's of course a lot more information. We had a lot more questions being asked to the different respondents. So we'll also be drafting really reports of the different lighthouse sites where we go much more into depth. We will also publicize somewhere at the end of the project also all the findings coming from the survey. So there's much more to come, but we'd like to share already the first insights with you today. So that's done with this presentation. So then I give back the floor to maybe Brandon again, or someone who can introduce the more specific lighthouse site reports where we go already a bit more into depth. Now I put you on the spot there, Brandon, sorry for that, but and you're still muted, but
Thanks for that unexpected pass, Geert. Okay, so we have 4 of the lighthouse sites, hopefully everybody lined up, ready to go. And we're going to present the findings from Romania, the lighthouse site of Ramnicu, Sarat, from Spain, from sites in Catalonia, from Latvia, Vidzeme, and from Kusel district in Germany. So who is ready to present? Do we have the presentation from Ramnicu, Sarat in Romania?
yeah, so that's why I was passing the ball to you, Brandon. So thanks for stepping in, because that gave me the opportunity to change the slides that I have in full screen mode. So with that, I can quickly show the presentation. I hope you...
Okay, then for smoothness of it, when you're done, you can then just pass on to our friends from Catalonia. Thank you.
Yes, perfect. Okay, will do. So I hope everybody can see my screen again. And yeah, so the first thing we looked at is a model split of the people in Ramnicu, Sarat in the Romanian region. So again, I like also in a general overview, the car being the most used of mode of transport for making trips, followed by walking and public transport. So as already compared to others, walking is relatively popular in Romania. And also that the car is actually most used for leisure trips. So in the daily work-to-work travel, which usually the share is higher than actually the one for the car is lower in Romania. And also we asked the question, it's not in a graph here, but on the satisfaction with public transportation. And 1 in 3 people in Romania replied that they are happy with the way their public transportation is. But it also says that 2 in 3 people actually would like to see their public transportation being improved, and they're not so satisfied with it. And then also on this recent shocks, as we call them in Europe, because it's not only the COVID pandemic that of course hit, but also the war in Ukraine, and then as a consequence also the inflation. So that also both had an impact, of course, on how do people travel. So in Romania, about 45% of the respondents changed their travel behavior because of COVID, and even 80% changed their travel behavior because of the inflation. So it's quite a lot. We see quite a lot of change. And a bit of a point of attention, we also asked them, okay, but how do you travel differently? So indeed, people use more their bikes, or they use the public transport more. But we also had people that decided to actually travel less. And also because in rural mobility, transportation poverty is an issue. It's something we should all be aware of. So we also identified here in Romania a group of about 10% of the people that change their behavior that actually travel less because they feel less able to do so. So that's really a point of attention. And we also asked the people in Ramnicu Sarat, okay, but what is hindering you from actually using alternatives to the car in your region? Because we saw an overwhelming majority of people that find the sustainability an important topic, and it's something that they want to take into consideration for their traveling plans. So most people mentioned that they want to like walk or cycle more. So if it would be possible that they use this way more to go around, and about 25% would like to use the public transportation more. And when we're asking about the barriers, so what should actually be changed in order to be able to do that, to use indeed more the bike or to walk or use public transportation, the most answered responses were a lack of proper infrastructure and the fact that there are no alternatives to the car in general. And then also we asked them some tourism questions, and a lot of people showed their interest into seasonal public transportation. So when it's the summer season or when there's a high season when it comes to tourism, that they really would like to see more public transportation that follows the amount of visitors coming to the area, and that they would definitely use such a service then also during those kind of peak times. And yeah, and also another important question that we asked is about what is the effect of tourism, and are tourists, if we kind of give them more alternatives to visitors to your area, would that also be a positive impact and also on the congestion? And also in there, 70% agree to that statement, and they really think that if there are some catered services catered to tourists, that they will use their car less, that then also the congestion issue in the area would be less. So with that, the short presentation on Romania. And with that, I would like to share the floor, I think, with Iago or somebody else from TISH that can show a little bit more about the results in Catalonia.
It will be my colleague Laura that will present.
Yes, hello, good morning, everyone. Let me share my screen.
Laura, sorry for jumping in. So if you wish, I also have your presentation on my desk, so I can share the screen if you wish.
Okay, that can be. It's giving me some trouble, so
Yeah.
if you can share it for me, that would be really nice. Thank you so much. So good morning, everyone. My name is Laura. I'm from the TIS team, and today I will be presenting the lighthouse results for Spain, for Catalonia, for the little region of Bigues and Riells. First, we will explore how residents are currently traveling, how recent external shocks have influenced their behaviors, and what this means for future mobility planning in the region. So if you're so kind, Andrea, thank you so much. First, let's take a look at the model split per purpose in Bigues and Riells. The survey revealed a high dependence on private cars, as we can see. 77% of respondents find it complicated to plan a trip without a private car. Additionally, 57 are dissatisfied with the public transport options. What does this mean? This means that this heavy reliance on private vehicles, it highlights a need for improved and more attractive public transport options, indicating that the current options that people in Bigues and Riells are not attractive enough and are not meeting the needs of the residents, which is what pushes them to use more private cars. If we can move on to the second slide, please. Thank you. Next, we examine how recent external shocks, such as COVID and inflation, have impacted travel behavior. So as we can see, approximately 10% of respondents changed their travel behavior due to COVID-19, with many increasing their use of private cars and traveling less often. Around 18% of respondents altered their travel behavior due to recent inflation, relying less on private cars, using public transport more, and opting to walk more frequently. The interpretation of this slide basically means that COVID-19 led to a short-term increase in private car use, likely due to health and safety concerns. However, inflation has had the opposite effect, pushing people towards more sustainable and cost-effective travel options. This shift could be an opportunity to promote public transport in active travel modes, like walking and cycling, especially if we can address the concerns that drive people to use private cars. Moving on to the third slide, let's take a look into the mobility attitudes. We also explored the residents' attitudes towards mobility. As we can see, about 73% of respondents consider their carbon footprint when choosing their mode of travel. And the main barriers to adopting more sustainable mobility options are the lack of alternatives and the unsuitable geography. The fact that a significant majority of residents are aware of their carbon footprint, I think it's very promising. However, this awareness currently is not being translated into action due to these practical barriers that we've mentioned. So, to encourage sustainable mobility, we need to improve the availability and convenience of alternatives like public transportation and cycling infrastructure, while also considering the geographical challenges these residents face. For the last slide, we also assessed how tourists move in Bigues and Riells when they come visit. As we can see, about 65% of respondents believe that the region is not accessible for tourists without a car. Additionally, 45% of respondents view traffic generated from tourism as a problem. So this current situation suggests that a dual challenge is being faced by Bigues and Riells. First off, enhancing accessibility for tourists who do not have a car is a priority, and managing the traffic congestion caused by those who do. Improving public transport connections and creating attractive, car-free tourist options could mitigate these issues and enhance the overall visitor experience and reducing the strain on local infrastructure. So in conclusion, the survey highlights significant mobility challenges and opportunities in Bigues and Riells. The heavy reliance on private cars, influenced by both dissatisfaction with public transport and recent external shocks, points to a clear need for investment in better transportation alternatives. Additionally, addressing the barriers to sustainable mobility and improving tourism accessibility are crucial for creating a more efficient and eco-friendly transportation system in the region. Thank you very much for your attention. Now.
Thank you very much, Laura. So I'd now invite Anita Balok from E40 to present from the Vidzeme region in Latvia, and then you might hand over directly to Rika Olsen from NET, who will present about Kusel district in Germany. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everyone. As Brendan said, I will shortly present the outcomes of the Vidzeme region, which is the Latvian lighthouse site. As you can see on the graph, in Vidzeme there is quite high bicycle ownership. Around 80% of the households have at least one bicycle, and the average bicycle per household is 2.5, while the same for the vehicle ownership is only 1.5 vehicle per household, and the same number, around 80% of the households have at least one car. Also, the respondent said that around 80% of them have a driving license. Notwithstanding that the bicycle ownership is higher than the vehicle ownership, as it was highlighted before, even in Vidzeme region, the personal vehicles are the primary mode of transport for all activities, with public transport as the second most common mode. And only when we are talking about the day trip, there is a greater use of cycling and walking, but still the private vehicle is the most preferred mode of transport. The car dependency is quite high. A significant portion of the respondents, regardless to their place of living, so it can be rural or urban as well. We find it challenging to plan a trip without the car, even though the urban people have a slightly better perception of this, but still even them, they find it difficult to plan a trip without a car. As for the satisfaction with the public transport as the second most preferred mode of transport, the opinion of the respondent was quite divided. 1/3 of the respondent feel that they are very satisfied or satisfied with the public transport, while 1/3 of them feel that they are not satisfied or very dissatisfied, or 1/3 of them feel that they are neutral about this question. They're more positive and asking them about the information on the accessibility of public transport. 71% find it accessible or very accessible. And those who mentioned as well, those who were like dissatisfied with the public transport, they mentioned the main reason for the poor timings, the limited routes, or the infrequency of public transport. As for the external shock, COVID had a varied impact on the respondents, with most impacts being temporary or limited. The pandemic did not drastically change, for example, the majority's working situation, or they didn't change place of living. 69% declared that there is no change in their travel behavior, and 31% said that there is some change. The impact of the fuel prices, due to the impact of the fuel prices, only 9% said that they are using their car less, while almost more than half of the respondents, they are still using the car, even though they are feeling the financial means at their disposal. As for the mobility attitudes, a significant number of respondents are not actively considering their carbon footprint. Only 30% said that they are considering it or limitedly considering it. And as an alternative mode of transport, the respondents mainly mentioned the public transport or the walking as their preference to the car, the private car. But the primary obstacles to use alternative transport is the poor public transport options, the weather conditions, and the limited alternatives. And on my last slide, there are the results of the questions related to tourism. Here again, it's quite divided, the opinion of the people when asking them about the accessibility of the region for tourists without a car. Around 1/3 of them feel it's accessible, another third feel that it's not accessible, and another third feel neutral about this question. Most of the people, over half of the people, are using or would use the transport catered for tourists. And a third question was asked about how do they feel about they feel that the number of tourists is a problem in their area. Here again, the answer was quite divided. Around 1/3 of the people, respondents, believe that the number of tourists is not an issue, and 1/3 perceived it as a problematic issue. Some of them mentioned that there is not a real influx of tourists in the area, only when then there are some major events, when due to the poor infrastructure or the public parking possibilities, the tourists might mean a problem for them. And that was my last slide, so I would like to pass it to Rieka.
Thank you, Anita. So hello to everyone. I will present some figures from a German Leiter site, Kusel district, that is located in Rhineland-Palatinate in the western part of Germany. As you can see here, most households own an average of 2 cars per household. We should note at this point that all so 98% are in possession of a driver's license. That's quite a lot if we compare it, for example, site, where households own an average of 1.5 vehicles and 80% of respondents have a driving license. Almost 2/3 own one or several bikes, and 30% have an e-bike, 10% a moped or motorcycle, and 10% an electric car. The share of respondents with e-scooters is 4%. We have a look on the model split, referring to their personal situation. 95% answered they have a standard route for the way of their place of purpose. The majority of people use the standard route almost daily. And on their routes, the respondents from Kusel district normally reach their target locations with their personal vehicle, the car or motorcycle, with 93%. Second is walking with a modal share of 17%, and by bike is third with 16%, including. And public transportation is used by only 7% of the respondents. So compared to Romania, we see that in Kusel, the car is used more, whereas people walk and use public transport less. Additionally, people were asked for what other reasons beyond work and study they have regular routes and which modes of transport they use on these routes. Here, the personal vehicle is the most used mode as well, with 98%, followed by walking and e-bike with 20%. The transport is a little higher than for work and caretaking. And the main purpose of not taken because of work or study is to go shopping. In personal motorized vehicles are ranked number 1 as well. E-bike follows with 27%, and walking takes 24%. And public transportation is used by 18% of respondents from Kusel district. When asked how accessible information about public transport in the region is, a little more than half of respondents think that the information is accessible or even very accessible. 35% are neutral, and the rest says that information about public transport is not accessible. Of all respondents, almost 2/3 of the respondents are dissatisfied or even strongly dissatisfied with the public transport offer in Kusel district, and are satisfied or extremely satisfied. So compared to the other lighthouse sites, we see that the satisfaction rate with public transport is significantly. There are numerous complaints about unreliable timetables, long waiting and traveling times, strike, missing connections, and expensive fares, and many feel cut off in the countryside and say that it is impossible to live in Kusel district without an own car. The citizen bus and the call taxi are rated positively, but cannot be used for all purposes. Asking whether respondents consider their carbon footprint traveling, 41% said no. Almost 1/4 says they only limitedly consider the carbon footprint when making travel choices, while 20% say they're conscious but admit that they find other factors more important in the travel choice. 16% answered the question with yes. For example, compared with Romania, where 5% of respondents to a certain extent take their carbon footprint, and the number for Kusel is lower. And to reduce carbon offset while traveling in the region, individuals have adopted several strategies. Most of the respondents use more sustainable means of transport, like bike or bus or train, and some use an electric vehicle. Few give or take lifts or prefer walking whenever possible. Other answers referred mostly on holiday trips, for example, on reduced use of airplanes or nearby holidays, and not on regional travel. Considering that they had the opportunity, most people answered that they would favor using bus and train as an alternative mode of transport. Using the car of a family member, carpooling are popular options as well. And walking, the use of an on-demand bus and shared community cars got relative as well. So that's it with the figures from Germany, and thank you for your attention.